coffee pot was burning my hand, but I couldn't set it down. Not when table 7, the one by the window with the broken blinds, still had 3 empty mugs waiting to be filled. Not when the kitchen was backed up and Marcus had called in sick again, leaving me to cover both the floor and the register at Rosie's Diner. Not when my phone kept buzzing in my apron pocket with texts from the landlord about this month's rent. 23 years old, and this was my life. Burnt coffee, cracked vinyl booths, and the perpetual smell of fryer grease that no amount of showering could completely wash away. My mother used to say I'd do something important with my life. She'd believed it right up until the cancer took her 6 months ago, leaving me with nothing but medical debt, a studio apartment I couldn't afford, and a mysterious past she'd never explained. I refilled table 7's mugs with practiced efficiency, my mind already calculating, 2 more hours until closing, $40 in, a tip so far, another 100 still needed before Friday or Mr. Chen would start the eviction process. Again. Riley. Angie, the other night waitress, grabbed my elbow as I passed. Her eyes were wide, nervous. Don't look now, but we've got a situation. I looked anyway. The front door had just opened, letting in a gust of November wind, and 4 men who made every survival instinct I'd ever developed start screaming. 3 of them were clearly muscular, expensive suits that couldn't quite hide the bulk of weapons underneath. Eyes that scanned the diner like they were calculating exits and threat assessments. But the 4th man, the one in front, made the others look like background props in his personal movie. He was tall, maybe 6'3", with dark hair styled in that effortless way that suggested either a very expensive barber or complete indifference to trends. Mid-30s, I'd guess, with olive skin and a jawline sharp enough to cut glass. His suit probably cost more than I'd make in 6 months. Charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes that screamed money and power. But it was his eyes that made my breath catch. Dark, almost black, and so intense I felt them sweep the entire diner in a single glance before landing on me. I've got this, I told Angie, who looked relieved enough to practically sprint toward the kitchen. I grabbed a handful of menus and approached their booth. Of course, they'd chosen the back corner, the one with clear sightlines to both entrances, with my best customer service smile firmly in place. Evening, gentlemen. Coffee to start? The man in the expensive suit looked up at me, and I felt the full weight of his attention. It was like being pinned by a spotlight. Calculated, assessing, dangerous, coffee, black. His voice was deep, with the barest hint of an accent I couldn't place. Italian, maybe. And water. I poured 4 coffees, hands steady despite the way my pulse had kicked up. This close, I could see more details. The expensive watch on his wrist, the ring on his right hand that looked antique and significant, the faint scar along his jawline that makeup or lighting couldn't quite hide. As I set down the last mug, my sleeve rode up slightly. Just an inch, but enough. As I set down the last mug, my sleeve rode up slightly, revealing the small phoenix tattoo on my inner left forearm, the one my mother had insisted I get at 18. Flames forming a specific pattern with 3 stars positioned in an unusual constellation around the bird. The man's hand shot out, fingers closing around my wrist. Not painfully, but firmly enough that I couldn't easily pull away. Where did you get that? His voice had gone deadly quiet. My voice came out rough. It's just a tattoo. I got it a few years ago. Don't lie to me. His thumb pressed against my pulse point, and I knew he could feel my heart hammering. This design is unique. There are only 6 people in the world who wear this mark, and 5 of them are, sitting at this table or dead. So I'll ask you again, where did you get it? If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The diner had gone silent. I could feel every eye on us, feel the tension radiating from the 3 other men who'd gone still and watchful. One of them had his hand inside his jacket, and I didn't need to be a genius to know what he was reaching for. My mother, I whispered. My mother had the same tattoo. Exact same design, same placement. She made me get it before she 5. My voice cracked. Before she died, 6 months ago. The man's grip on my wrist tightened fractionally. Your mother's name. Why does that? Her name. Not a request. A command. Victoria. Victoria Chen originally, but she changed it to Victoria Hayes after I stopped, because I'd never known what came after. My mother had always deflected questions. About her past, about why we'd moved to Boston when I was 8, about why she'd changed our last name, about the nightmares that woke her screaming sometimes. The man released my wrist like I'd burned him. He stood abruptly, towering over me, and for a terrifying moment I thought he might what? Hit me? Arrest me? The look on his face was impossible to read, equal parts shock and something that looked almost like pain. Victoria Chen. He repeated the name like a prayer or a curse. Vivi. You knew her? He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke in rapid Italian to someone on the other end. I caught maybe one word in 5. Impossible. Alive daughter, tattoo. When he finished, he looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. What's your name? Riley. Riley Hayes. Riley. He said it slowly, testing the weight of it. Do you have any idea what that tattoo means? What was your mother? She was a waitress. Like me. But I stopped, because that wasn't entirely true, was it? My mother had so many things I'd never understood. The way she'd known how to pick locks when I'd locked myself out at 12. The gun I'd found in her closet once, along with a passport in a different name. The phone calls she'd take in the middle of the night, speaking in Italian I wasn't supposed to understand. The Chinese I'd always thought connected us to my father's heritage, a father I'd never met, who'd died before I was born according to the story I'd been told. Your mother, the man said carefully, was Vittoria Chen Marchesi. She was my uncle's wife. And that tattoo marks you as blood as family to the Marchesi organization. The coffee pot slipped from my fingers, shattering on the tile floor. Coffee and ceramic shards spread across the floor, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. That's impossible. My mother she disappeared 18 years ago. He continued like I hadn't spoken. The night my Uncle Luca was murdered, everyone assumed she'd been killed too, that her body had been disposed of separately. But she ran, didn't she? Took you and ran. I thought about all the times my mother had checked over her shoulder, the way she'd made me memorize exit strategies for every building we entered, the 3 different sets of IDs I'd found after she died, all with her picture and different names. I don't understand. You don't need to understand. Not yet. He pulled out a card, pressed it into my hand. Heavy cardstock, embossed. Just a name and number. Dante Marchesi. That's my name. You're going to call this number tomorrow morning at 9. We need to talk, somewhere private, about your mother and what she knows. I'm working tomorrow morning. Not anymore. He pulled out a money clip, counted out bills without looking. 500. This covers your shift and your rent. Call me at 9, Riley. This isn't optional. He turned to leave, the 3 men falling into formation around him. At the door, he paused, looked back at me standing in the middle of broken ceramic and spilled coffee. I owe your mother a debt I can never repay. His expression softened slightly. But that tattoo marks you as Marchesi family, whether you knew it or not. And that means you're in danger. People have been looking for Victoria Chen for 18 years, now that they know she has a daughter. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Then he was gone, leaving me with $500, a business card, and the sudden terrifying knowledge that everything I'd thought I knew about my mother was a lie. I didn't call at 9 the next morning. I called at 8:45, because I'd been awake since 3 a.m., researching Dante Marchesi online and not liking what I found. Articles about organized crime in Boston, photographs of him at charity events and city council meetings, always in expensive suits, always surrounded by men who screamed security detail, references to his family business in imports and shipping, which every article carefully didn't accuse of being mob-operated while heavily implying it, and pictures of his uncle Luca Marchesi, murdered 18 years ago in what the papers called a gangland execution. Shot 6 times in his own home, his wife missing and presumed dead. His wife, Victoria, Vivi. My mother, Dante answered on the first ring. Riley, how did you know it was me? I've been waiting. There's a car outside your building. Gray sedan. My driver will bring you somewhere we can talk. I looked out my window. Sure enough, a gray sedan idled at the curb, driver in a dark suit reading a newspaper. How long has he been there? Since midnight. After I left the diner, I sent protection. You're a target now, whether you want to be or not. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in a private office above a restaurant in the North End, watching Dante Marchesi pour espresso from a machine that probably cost more, all than my car. The office was elegant but functional. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, windows overlooking the street. Maps on one wall marked with pins and colored strings. Filing cabinets that probably contained things I didn't want to know about. Your mother, Dante said, setting an espresso cup in front of me. Was 23 when she married my uncle Luca. Arranged marriage between the Marchesi and Chen families, solidifying an alliance between Italian and Chinese organized crime in Boston. My mother was Chinese-Italian mob royalty? The absurdity of the sentence would have made me laugh if I wasn't terrified. She was more than that. She was brilliant, spoke 6 languages, had degrees in international business and linguistics. She ran the family's overseas operations, negotiated treaties with Russian and Irish factions. He sat across from me, his own espresso untouched. She was also the only person my uncle ever truly loved. Everyone knew it. That love made her. Dangerous made her a target. So someone killed him and she ran? Someone killed him, yes. But the official story never made sense. Dante pulled out a file, spread photographs across the desk. Crime scene photos I shouldn't be seeing, showing a man Luca dead in what looked like a home office. My uncle was shot 6 times, professional hit. But nothing was stolen, nothing was disturbed, and the evidence suggested he knew his killer, let them into his office willingly. I forced myself to look at the photos, trying to see past the horror to the details. You think my mother. No, he cut me off firmly. Your mother didn't kill him, but she knew who did, or she knew something that made her dangerous. That's why she ran. That's why she changed your name, moved to Boston, lived like a ghost for 18 years. Then why make me get this tattoo? I pulled up my sleeve, showing the phoenix. If she was hiding, why mark me? Because this tattoo is more than decoration. It's a message, a claim of bloodline. The phoenix rising from flames, that's the Marchesi family crest. The 3 stars represent the 3 original families in our alliance, Marchesi, Chen, and De Luca. He touched his own wrist, pulled back his sleeve to reveal an identical tattoo. Every blood member of the family gets this mark at 18. Your mother gave you this because she wanted to make sure that if anything happened to her, you'd be protected. Protected by the mob? Protected by family. He held my gaze. You're Luca's stepdaughter, Riley. That makes you my cousin by marriage. That makes you Marchesi, whether you want it or not. I stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Below, the north end bustled with morning life. People living normal lives, going to normal jobs, completely unaware that organized crime dynasties operated in the shadows around them. I don't want this. I didn't ask for this. I'm just a waitress trying to pay rent. I know, and I'm sorry your mother's past has become your present. But Riley, his tone made me turn around. The people who killed Luca have been looking for Victoria for 18 years. They knew she disappeared with something information, evidence, something that could destroy them. Now she's dead, and you're the only link left. I don't have anything. I don't know anything. When she died, I inherited debt and a shitty apartment. Did you go through her belongings? Everything she left behind? I thought about the boxes I'd shoved into my closet, unable to face sorting through my mother's things. Clothes and books and the accumulated debris of a life lived in hiding. Not thoroughly. Then that's where we start. He stood, already pulling out his phone. I'm sending a team to your apartment. They'll help you go through everything, looking for anything unusual, documents, keys, account numbers, anything that doesn't fit. You're sending your people into my home? I'm sending protection and resources. There's a difference. He moved closer, and I was struck again by how intense his presence was. Not threatening exactly, but overwhelming. Riley, I need you to understand something. The person who killed my uncle is still out there, still powerful, still dangerous. If they discover you exist, they'll kill me too. Yes, unless I protect you first. He pulled out another card, this one with an address. This is a safe house in Cambridge. Fully secured, multiple exits, armed guards. I need you to stay there until we figure out what your mother knew and who wants you dead for it. I have a job. Responsibilities. I can't just disappear into witness protection because my dead mother had secrets. Your job is at a diner where any random customer could put a bullet in your head. Your responsibilities will mean nothing if you're dead. His voice hardened. I'm not giving you a choice here. You're coming with me now, whether you agree or not. Because 18 years ago, your mother saved my life, when she had no reason to, and I owe her this. I owe her for keeping her daughter alive. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him I could handle myself, that I didn't need protection from shadows and possibilities. But looking at Dante's face at the determination and barely controlled worry, I understood something fundamental. This wasn't just about debt or family obligation. He'd cared about my mother, Maybe I loved her, in the way children love adults who show them kindness. And now I was the last piece of her still walking around. "Okay," I said quietly, "but I need to grab some things from my apartment first." "Already arranged. We'll go together." He opened the door, and I saw two of the men from last night waiting in the hallway. "Riley, welcome to the family. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances." As I followed him out, past men with guns and into a world I'd never asked to enter, I touched the tattoo on my forearm. The phoenix my mother had insisted I get, the mark that had just dragged me into a war I didn't understand. "What did you know, Mom? What were you protecting me from?" The questions echoed in my mind, unanswered. But I had a feeling I was about to find out, and something told me the truth was going to be far more dangerous than any lie my mother had told. My apartment looked smaller, with 4 armed men standing in it. They moved through the space with professional efficiency, opening closets, checking under the bed, examining the fire escape like they expected assassins to come rappelling down at any moment. Dante stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in low Italian to someone about security protocols and threat assessments. In the harsh afternoon light, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his free hand kept curling into a fist and releasing. "Clear." One of the men, Marco, I'd learned, announced. "No surveillance devices, no signs of entry. But boss, the lock on her front door is garbage. I could pick it. With a hairpin." "Noted. We'll upgrade before she returns." Dante ended his call, turned to face me. "Pack enough for a week. Clothes, toiletries, anything you can't live without. We need to move quickly." I pulled a duffel bag from my closet, started throwing in jeans and sweaters with shaking hands. A week. He'd said a week like it was nothing, like uprooting my entire life was just a minor inconvenience. "The boxes," I said suddenly, remembering. "My mother's things. They're in the closet." Dante was beside me immediately, pulling down 3 cardboard boxes labeled in my mother's precise handwriting. Personal. Documents. Memories. We'd packed them together the week before she died, her hands too weak to do it herself, her voice hoarse as she'd told me which items mattered and which could be donated. She'd lingered over these 3 boxes, made me promise to keep them, to not throw anything away, to look carefully when you're ready. I hadn't been ready. 6 months later, I still wasn't ready. Dante opened the first box, personal, with careful hands, like he was defusing a bomb. Inside, clothes, jewelry, a few books in Italian and Chinese. He went through each item methodically, checking pockets, examining bindings, looking for hidden compartments. Nothing. The second box, memories, yielded photo albums I'd never seen before. Pictures of my mother, young and beautiful, standing beside a handsome man I recognized from the crime scene photos, Luca. They looked happy, arms around each other at what appeared to be a wedding. Other photos showed my mother pregnant with me. I realized Luca's hand on her swollen belly, both of them laughing at something off camera. "She loved him," I whispered. "She really did. Everyone knew it." Dante's voice was soft. "My uncle was different with her. Less cold, more human. She made him want to be better than what our family demanded." He kept searching, finding nothing but memories until he reached the bottom of the box. There, tucked under the last photo album, was an envelope, cream-colored, expensive, sealed with red wax that bore the same phoenix symbol from my tattoo. Dante went very still. The seal. Only family patriarchs can use this seal. Only the head of the Marchesi family. But my mother wasn't. She was Luca's wife. When he died, she would have inherited his position temporarily until a male heir came of age. He carefully broke the seal, pulled out a single sheet of paper covered in my mother's handwriting. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, and my daughter needs protection. Dante, I'm trusting you'll find her, recognize the mark I gave her, understand what it means. She's innocent of all this. She knows nothing about the night Luca died, about what I took, about where I hid it. But you need to know the truth. Luca wasn't killed by the Irish or the Russians. He was killed by one of our own, someone in the inner circle, someone who wanted what he had and was willing to murder family to take it. I have proof. Documents, recordings, photographs, everything needed to identify the traitor and destroy them. I took it all the night Luca died, and I've kept it hidden for 18 years, waiting for the right moment to use it. That moment is now. If I'm dead, it means they finally found me, which means they'll come for Riley next, looking for what I have. The proof is hidden where Luca proposed to me, where he promised me we'd always be safe. You were there that day, Dante. You were 8 years old and you picked the lock on the garden gate because you wanted to see the fountain. You'll remember. Protect my daughter. She deserves better than this life. But she's Marchesi now, whether she wants it or not. Keep her alive long enough to decide who she wants to be. And Dante, destroy the bastard who killed my husband. Make them pay for every year I spent running. Every night I woke up terrified they'd found us. Make them pay for stealing the life Riley should have had. With love and trust, Vivi. The silence in the apartment was deafening. Dante read the letter 3 times, his expression shifting from shock to cold fury to something that looked almost like grief. She knew, he said finally. For 18 years, she knew who killed Luca, and she kept it secret, kept the evidence hidden, waiting. Waiting for what? For me to be old enough, strong enough, powerful enough to do something about it. He folded the letter carefully. I was 15 when Luca died, too young to lead, too young to fight back. My father took control of the family as regent until I came of age at 21. Your father? Something dark crossed his face. Antonio Marchesi. He became patriarch when Luca died, ruled for 6 years until I was old enough to challenge him for leadership. We've had an uneasy truce ever since I control operations. He controls the old guard. But if he was the one who killed Luca, he didn't finish the sentence, but I understood the cover-out. Implications. If Dante's own father had murdered his uncle, had spent 18 years hunting my mother, then I'd just been dragged into the middle of a family civil war. Where Luca proposed, I said, trying to redirect. Do you remember? The Moretti estate. It's a property in Newton and has been in the family for 3 generations. There's a garden with a fountain imported from Florence in the 1920s. His eyes focused on something distant, remembering. I was 8. Luca brought Vivi there to propose, and I followed them because I was a nosy kid who wanted to see what Uncle Luca was being so secretive about. I picked the lock on the garden gate and hid in the bushes, watching him get down on one knee by the fountain. Is the estate still there? Yes, my father lives there now. His jaw tightened. Which means retrieving your mother's evidence is going to be significantly more complicated than I'd hoped. Marco appeared in the doorway. Boss, we've got movement. Outside. Black SUV. Circled the block twice. Stopped for visual confirmation. They're gone now, but someone's definitely interested in this location. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. How fast can we move? Dante was already pulling me toward the door, one hand on my elbow, the other reaching for the gun I saw holstered under his jacket. 30 seconds if we use the fire escape. 2 minutes if we go through the building. Fire escapes. Move. Everything happened too fast to process. One moment I was in my apartment, the next I was being hustled down a metal fire escape, the duffel bag over my shoulder, Marco ahead of us and 2 other guards behind. My sneakers clanged against metal grating. November wind cut through my thin jacket. We hit the alley behind my building, and a different car was waiting, a black SUV, with tinted windows and an engine already running. Dante practically shoved me into the back seat, sliding in beside me while Marco took the driver's seat, and the other guards piled into a second vehicle. Where are we going? I managed as Marco pulled into traffic. Safe house in Cambridge. Then we plan how to get into the Moretti estate without alerting my father that we're looking for evidence against him. Dante was texting rapidly on his phone. This changes everything. If Antonio killed Luca, he's been running the family through murder and deception for 18 years. The council won't take kindly to that. The council? The 5 families each send representatives to a council that governs organized crime in Boston. Keeps the peace, settles disputes, enforces rules. Murder of a patriarch without council approval is the worst crime you can commit. It destabilizes everything. He looked at me, and I saw calculation in his dark eyes. Your mother's evidence doesn't just prove my father killed Luca. It proves he broke the most sacred rule of our world. If we present it to the council, they'll have no choice but to vote for his execution, and you'll become patriarch. Yes, which is probably why Antonio had your mother killed now, after 18 years. I just turned 33, the age when I could seriously challenge his leadership. If she'd come forward with evidence, if she'd helped me take control. He didn't finish, but the implication was clear. My mother had insurance, leverage, a weapon Dante could have used to claim his rightful inheritance, and someone, Antonio, probably had finally decided that weapon needed to be eliminated. We drove in silence for 20 minutes, Marco taking a route so circuitous I lost track of where we were. Finally, we pulled into an underground garage beneath a modern apartment building in Cambridge. More security, more armed men, an elevator that required a keycard and thumbprint to operate. The safe house was on the top floor, a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the Charles River. Beautiful and sterile and completely foreign to someone who'd spent her life in studios and walk-ups. "You'll be safe here," Dante said as Marco and the others swept the apartment. Armed guards on rotation, supplies stocked, communications secured. No one knows about this location except my most trusted people. "And how do I know your most trusted people aren't working for your father?" He smiled slightly, the first time I'd seen anything like humor on his face. "You're learning to think like one of us. Good instincts." He gestured to Marco and the two other guards who'd been with us constantly. "These three, Marco, Vincent, and Sal, have been with me since I was 16. They're loyal to me personally, not to the family. I'd trust them with my life. You're trusting them with mine." "Yes, because you're Victoria's daughter, and she saved my life once." He moved closer, and I caught the scent of his cologne, expensive, subtle, with notes of cedar and bergamot. I was 8 years old, playing in my uncle's study where I wasn't supposed to be. One of Antonio's men came in, saw me, decided a convenient accident would clear succession issues. Your mother walked in on him holding a pillow over my face. She shot him 3 times without hesitation, then lied to the entire family about what happened, said he'd attacked her and she'd defended herself. His hand touched my shoulder briefly, a fleeting connection. Antonio believed her because everyone knew Vivi was loyal to Luca and would never harm family without reason. But she'd killed one of his men to save me, knowing it would make her a target. She did it anyway because I was a child and she believed children should be protected, even in our world. "So you're protecting me out of debt. I'm protecting you because you're family, because your mother trusted me, and because..." He stopped, jaw tightening. "Because I spent 18 years believing Vivi died with my uncle, and finding out she survived, that she lived and had a daughter, and died 6 months ago while I had no idea. I can't save her, but I can save you." The raw honesty in his voice made something in my chest tighten. This dangerous man, this mob boss who probably had blood on his hands, was looking at me like I was precious and fragile and worth protecting. "Thank you," I managed. "For this, for believing my mother's letter, for not just using you as bait to draw out whoever killed her." He shook his head. "You're not bait, Riley. You're the last piece of Victoria Marchesi still walking around, and I'll be damned if I let you die like she did." His phone rang. He answered, listened, and his expression went cold. "When? How many casualties?" A pause. "Secure the perimeter and get me eyes on who ordered it. I'm on my way." He ended the call, looked at me. "I have to handle something. Stay here. Don't leave for any reason. Marco's in charge of your security. If anything feels wrong, if anyone approaches who isn't me or these 3 men, you run. Understood?" "What happened?" "Someone hit one of our warehouses in Southie. Burned it to the ground with 3 of my men inside." His voice was ice. "Antonio's sending a message. He knows you exist, he knows you're with me, and he's willing to go to war over it. Because of my mother's evidence. Because once that evidence goes public, he loses everything. Power, respect, his life. Cornered animals are the most dangerous, and my father is very dangerous when cornered." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Riley, I need to ask you something, and I need complete honesty." "Okay. Are you willing to testify to the council about your mother's letter? About what she told you regarding Luca's death?" I thought about my mother. About 18 years spent running and hiding. About dying alone in a hospital bed, still terrified that her past would catch up with her daughter. About the tattoo she'd made me get, the insurance policy she'd built to protect me. "Yes. If it helps bring justice for her and your uncle. Yes." Something like relief crossed his face. "Good, because in 3 days there's a council meeting. If we can retrieve the evidence by then and present it with your testimony, we end this before it becomes a full war." He pulled out a gun from somewhere, checked the clip with practiced ease, then offered it to me handle first. "Do you know how to use this?" "No. Marco will teach you. Not because I expect you to need it, but because I'd rather you have the skill and never use it than need it and not have it." Then he was gone, and I was alone in a penthouse with 3 armed men and a gun. I didn't know how to fire, trying to process that my life had completely disintegrated in less than 24 hours. Marco appeared with coffee, and what looked like takeout from an Italian place. You should eat, Miss Hayes. It's going to be a long few days. Riley, I corrected automatically. Just Riley. Riley, then. He set the food on the dining table. For what it's worth, Dante's one of the good ones. He'll keep you safe. Is anyone in your world actually good? Marco considered this. No, but some of us try to be less bad than others. Dante tries harder than most. I picked at the food pasta that smelled incredible but tasted like cardboard in my anxious mouth. Outside, the sun was setting over the Charles River, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Somewhere in Boston, men were dying over secrets my mother had kept for 18 years, and I was sitting in a penthouse eating pasta with the mob, learning to shoot guns and testify against Mafia patriarchs, wearing a tattoo that marked me as family to people who killed without hesitation. What kind of life did you condemn me to, Mom? I thought, touching the phoenix on my forearm. What kind of person am I going to have to become to survive this? The answer, I suspected, was someone my mother had spent 18 years trying to prevent me from being. Someone hard and dangerous and willing to operate in shadows. But if that's what it took to survive, to get justice for her and Luca, to help Dante take down the man who'd murdered his uncle, then maybe I could become that person. At least temporarily. At least until this was over and I could go back to being a waitress with debt and rent problems and no idea that her mother had been mob royalty. If I survived long enough to go back. Vincent taught me to shoot on the penthouse's private rooftop at midnight. The building was tall enough and isolated enough that gunfire wouldn't immediately alert police, especially with the suppressor he attached to the Glock. Stance, he instructed, positioning my feet shoulder-width apart. Firm grip, both hands. Don't anticipate the recoil, let it happen, then reset. I squeezed the trigger. The gun kicked in my hands, the shot going wide of the target Vincent had. Set up 20 feet away. Again. Breathe out as you fire. We practiced for an hour. By the end, I could hit the target more often than not, though my hands shook and my ears rang despite the suppressor. You're a natural, Vincent said, which I suspected was a lie to make me feel better. Most people flinch more on their first session. Most people aren't being hunted by the mob. Fair point. He cleared the gun, handed it back to me in a case. Keep this with you. Safety on unless you're ready to fire. And Riley, if you have to use it, don't hesitate. Hesitation gets you killed. Back in the penthouse, I couldn't sleep. 3 a.m. Found me standing at the windows, watching the city lights, the gun case on the coffee table behind me like an accusation. My phone buzzed. A text from Dante. Can't sleep either? How did you know? Marco's reports. He said you were pacing. I looked around, realized there were probably cameras everywhere. The idea should have bothered me more than it did. When do we go after the evidence? Tomorrow night. My father's hosting the monthly family dinner. He'll be occupied for 4 to 5 hours. Perfect window to search the fountain area without detection. Will I be going with you? A long pause. Then, yes, you know what the Phoenix seal looks like. You'll recognize your mother's hiding spot better than I will. But Riley, this is dangerous. If we're caught on my father's property without invitation, he'll have justification to kill us both. I'm already a target. Might as well be useful while I'm at it. Another pause. You sound like your mother. She used to say things like that pragmatic acceptance of danger she couldn't avoid. Did you love her? The question came out before I could stop it. My mother? I was 8 when she saved me, 15 when she disappeared. I loved her the way children love adults who show them kindness in a cruel world. She was the only person in my family who treated me like I mattered beyond my bloodline. I'm sorry you lost her. I'm sorry you never got to know her without the fear. She was remarkable, brilliant, and brave, and so much stronger than anyone gave her credit for. I touched the tattoo on my arm. She left me this. Insurance, you called it. But I think it was also permission. Permission for what? To be part of this world if I needed to be. To claim family if I had nowhere else to go. I took a breath. I hated her sometimes for being so secretive, for never explaining our past. But she was protecting me the only way she knew how. She did protect you. For 18 years, she kept you safe and hidden. That took incredible strength and sacrifice. I was crying now, quietly, tears running down my face in the darkened penthouse. For my mother, for the life she'd lost, for the fear she'd carried alone, for 18 years of running and hiding and dying without ever being able to go home. Get some sleep, Dante texted. Tomorrow we end this. We get the evidence, take it to the council, and destroy the man who made your mother run. I promise you. Riley Victoria will have justice. Thank you, I sent back. For everything. Family protects family. You're Marchesi now. That means something. I fell asleep on the couch with my phone in my hand and the gun case within reach, dreaming of a woman I'd never fully known and a man who'd loved her enough to protect her daughter 18 years later. Tomorrow, we'd break into a mob patriarch's estate and steal evidence of murder. Tomorrow, the war my mother had been running from would finally end. One way or another, Dante arrived at the safe house at 6 p.m., dressed entirely in black tactical pants, fitted shirt, leather jacket that probably concealed multiple weapons. He looked dangerous and focused, every inch the mob boss I'd seen in those online articles. You ready? He asked, eyes scanning me in my own dark clothes, jeans, black sweater, boots Marco had provided that were actually my size, as I'll ever be for breaking and entering. It's not breaking and entering if you're family. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Technically, you have Marchesi blood through your mother's marriage. You're entitled to visit family property. Something tells me your father won't see it that way. My father won't see us at all if we're careful. He handed me an earpiece. Communication device. You'll be able to hear me and Marco at all times. If something goes wrong, if we need to abort, you follow their instructions without question. Understood? I fitted the earpiece, heard Marco's voice come through clearly. Audio check. Can you hear me, Riley? Loud and clear. Dante pulled out a tablet, showed me a satellite image of the Moretti estate. The property is 20 acres in Newton. Main house here, surrounded by gardens. Security focused on the house itself and main gates. The fountain garden is here. He pointed to a section in the northeast corner, relatively isolated. We'll approach from the rear property, main line, cut through the woods, avoid main security patterns. How many guards? Usually 8 on a family dinner night. Most will be at the house, serving and protecting Antonio. Maybe 2 patrol the perimeter, but their routes are predictable. His finger traced a path. We'll have a 40-minute window from when we enter the property to when we need to be out. Any longer and we risk running into patrol shifts. And if your father finishes dinner early, then we run. Fast. He looked at me seriously. Riley, if I tell you to go, you go. No hesitation, no arguments. Marco will extract you even if I'm still inside. Your safety is the priority. What about your safety? Something warm flickered in his eyes. I've been in worse situations, but I appreciate the concern. We drove in silence, Marco at the wheel, Vincent and Sal in a second vehicle behind us. The sun had set by the time we reached Newton, affluent suburbs giving way to estates with gates and long driveways. The Moretti property appeared suddenly high walls, ornate iron gates, security cameras visible even from the road. Marco drove past without slowing, continued for another quarter mile before pulling onto a dirt access road that led into woods. From here we walk. Dante checked his watch. Dinner started 15 minutes ago. We have time, but not much. Stay close, stay quiet. The woods were dark and cold, November having stripped most leaves from the trees. I followed Dante's lead, stepping where he stepped, avoiding branches that might crack and give away our position. Behind us, Marco and Vincent moved like ghosts trained professionals who'd done this 1,000 times. We reached the property's rear wall, 8 feet of brick and iron, topped with decorative spikes. Dante produced a small device from his jacket, pressed it against a section of wall. A camera mounted nearby sparked once, went dark. 30 seconds before it resets, he murmured. Vincent, boost. Vincent locked his hands. Together. Dante stepped into them, was lifted up and over the wall with practiced ease. Then it was my turn. Vincent's boost, surprisingly gentle despite his strength, Dante's hands catching mine on the other side, pulling me over. We landed in a manicured garden, paths winding between hedges and flower beds dormant for winter. In the distance, I could see the main house, a massive Victorian structure lit up like a Christmas display, figures visible through windows. The fountain garden is northeast, Dante whispered into his comm. Marco, confirm security positions. 2 guards at the main house entrance, 1 on the west lawn. East side appears clear. You've got 15 minutes before the next patrol rotation. We moved quickly but carefully, keeping to shadows, using hedges as cover. My heart hammered so hard I was certain someone would hear it. Every sound, wind in trees, distant car on the street, crunch of gravel under our boots felt amplified, dangerous. Then I saw it. The fountain garden, enclosed by a low stone wall and iron gate. The fountain itself was stunning even in darkness. Italian marble, multiple tiers, carved with intricate designs. Water flowed still, despite winter approaching, probably heated to prevent freezing. Dante tried the gate. Locked, of course. Like old times, he murmured, pulling out lockpicks. Your mother laughed at me when I picked this lock at 8 years old. Said I was going to grow up to be a criminal. She wasn't wrong. No. The lock clicked open. She wasn't. We slipped inside the garden. Up close, the fountain was even more impressive angels and cherubs, surrounding a central phoenix rising from flames. The phoenix. The same symbol from our tattoos, from my mother's seal on that letter. Where would she hide it? I wondered aloud, circling the fountain. She said, where Luca proposed, where they'd always be safe. Dante knelt by the fountain's base, running his hands over marble. Luca proposed on the west side, by the inscription. See there. I looked where he pointed. Words carved in Italian. Amore eterno, promesso sotto le stelle. Eternal love, promised under the stars. He had it commissioned when he proposed, Dante said softly. Victoria loved stars, used to say they were the same no matter where you ran, that you could always find your way home by them. The 3 stars. The 3 stars in our tattoo, positioned around the phoenix in an unusual constellation. I touched the inscription, feeling carved letters under my fingers. Dante. The stars in the tattoo, they're not random. They're a specific constellation. He was beside me immediately. Which one? I don't know constellations well, but I pulled up my sleeve, showed him the tattoo in the fountain's lighting. The 3 stars formed a distinctive triangle, one star slightly larger than the others. This pattern, does it match anything here? We examined the fountain carefully. There, carved into the marble beneath, the inscription, almost invisible unless you knew to look, 3 small stars arranged in the exact pattern from our tattoos. Dante pressed on them. Nothing. Try a sequence, I suggested. Start with the largest star. He pressed them in order. Large, small, smaller. A click sounded, nearly inaudible under the fountain's water flow. A section of marble at the fountain's base shifted slightly inward. Son of a... Dante pulled at the section. It swung open, revealing a hidden compartment about 12 inches square. Inside, a waterproof box, sealed and untouched. Boss! Marco's voice came through the earpiece. Urgent. You've got company. East Patrol route changed. 2 guards heading your way, ETA 3 minutes. Copy that. Dante grabbed the box, secured it inside his jacket. We need to move. Now. We ran, abandoning stealth for speed. Behind us, I heard voices, guards calling to each other. Radios crackling. A spotlight swept across the garden, missing us by feet as we dove. Behind a hedge. Riley, stay down, Dante commanded. Marco, what's our exit route? West wall is clear, but that puts you near the guard post. South wall is your best bet through the rose garden, over the wall by the old greenhouse. We moved through the estate like hunted animals, adrenaline pumping, every sound a potential threat. The rose garden was a maze of dormant bushes and gravel paths that crunched too loudly under our boots. Behind us, more voices. Closer now. Someone had definitely seen something. Radioed for backup. The greenhouse appeared a Victorian structure of glass and iron, beautiful and falling into gentle decay. Beyond it, the south wall. Safety. Escape. Almost there, Dante said, reaching for my hand, pulling me forward. Lights flooded the area, blinding, sudden, from multiple directions. We froze. Men emerged from the darkness, 6 of them, all armed, all positioned strategically to cut off every escape route. And in the center, walking toward us with measured steps, was a man I recognized from photos. Antonio Marchesi, Dante's father, the man who'd murdered his brother and hunted my mother for 18 years. He was in his 60s but fit, dressed in an expensive suit despite the hour, silver hair perfectly styled. He looked like a grandfather, like someone who'd donate to charities and play with grandchildren. Not a killer, not a monster. But his eyes cold and calculating as they fixed on Dante, then shifted to me, told the truth. Nephew, Antonio said pleasantly, breaking into family property during dinner. That's poor manners, even for you. Uncle. Dante's voice was steady, but his hand had moved to his jacket, where I knew he carried a gun. Just retrieving something that belongs to me. Does it? Because this is my property. Anything on it belongs to me. Antonio's gaze shifted fully to me, assessing. And who is this? You've been keeping interesting company lately. No one you need to concern yourself with. Oh, I think I do. Antonio moved closer, and his guards shifted with him, weapons trained on us. She has Victoria's eyes. I'd recognize them anywhere. So, this must be the daughter, the one Victoria kept hidden for 18 years. Riley Hayes, I said, lifting my chin. Victoria Chen's daughter, Luca Marchesi's stepdaughter, which makes me family. Does it? Antonio smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Family doesn't sneak onto property in the night. Family doesn't steal. I'm not stealing. I'm retrieving evidence my mother left for me. Evidence about Luca's murder. The smile vanished. Careful, girl. You're speaking about things you don't understand. I understand perfectly. My voice was shaking, but I forced it steady. I understand my mother witnessed Luca's murder. I understand she took evidence proving who killed him. And I understand she's been running from you for 18 years because of it. Bold accusations from someone in a very vulnerable position. Antonio gestured, and his guards moved closer. You're surrounded, outgunned, and trespassing. I'd be within my rights to kill you both and claim you were intruders. Except you won't, Dante said, because I'm your nephew and heir. Killing me would start a war within the family. The council would demand answers. The council trusts me. I've led this family well for 18 years. Through murder and lies. Dante's hand was definitely on his gun now. I have Victoria's evidence, Antonio. Documents, recordings, everything proving you killed Luca and framed the Irish. Everything proving you've been lying to the family for nearly 2 decades. Antonio's composure cracked slightly. That evidence is useless without context, without testimony. It's the word of a dead woman against a living patriarch. Not just her word. I stepped forward despite Dante's warning grip on my arm. My mother left a letter, explaining everything, naming you specifically as Luca's murderer, and I'll testify to the council about it. About how you hunted her, how you killed her 6 months ago, because she was finally ready to come forward. You can't prove I had anything to do with Victoria's death, can't I? Dante pulled out his phone, held it up. On the screen, security footage showed men in a hospital, entering my mother's room, doing something to her IV line before leaving. Your men, 3 weeks before she died of complications from cancer. Except the autopsy I had done privately shows lethal doses of potassium chloride in her system. That's not cancer, Antonio. That's murder. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. You had her autopsied? I needed proof, Dante said quietly. I'm sorry, Riley. I should have told you. She was murdered? My voice broke. All this time, I thought cancer. She was murdered, Dante confirmed, eyes still on Antonio. By your men, on your orders. Because she'd finally contacted me. Because she'd decided 18 years was long enough that her daughter deserved to live without fear. Antonio's mask of civility shattered completely. She should have stayed hidden, should have kept her mouth shut and died quietly of her real cancer without drawing attention. But no, she had to be sentimental, had to think about her daughter's future. His voice dripped contempt. Weakness. Luca's weakness, passed down. Luca wasn't weak, Dante said coldly. He was strong enough to lead with honor instead of fear. That's what you couldn't stand, wasn't it? That he was better than you, that the family respected him more. So you murdered him and took what he built. I saved this family. Antonio's composure was gone entirely now, replaced by rage. Luca would have ruined us with his weakness, his alliances with outsiders, his ridiculous notions about honor. I did what was necessary. You confessed. I realized it at the same moment Dante did. You just confessed. And we're recording. Antonio's eyes widened as he saw Dante's phone still, held up, camera light blinking. As he realized guards around the property had heard every word through the comms that were probably still active. Kill them, Antonio ordered. Kill them both. Now. But his guards hesitated, because in our world, the rules mattered, and Antonio had just broken the most sacred rule by confessing to patriarch murder. Dante moved. His gun was out before I could blink, trained on Antonio. Tell your men to lower their weapons. Now, or I shoot you where you stand, and the council rules it justified execution. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Dante's voice was ice. You murdered my uncle, who I loved. You hunted Victoria for 18 years. You killed her when she was already dying of cancer. And you tried to kill Riley, the last innocent piece of this whole disaster. His finger tightened on the trigger. Give me one reason not to put a bullet in your head right now. Because you're better than me, Antonio said, desperate now. You said it. Yourself, Luca led with honor. If you kill me here, without trial, without the council's judgment, you're no better than I am. Dante's hand shook slightly. I could see the war in his eyes, justice versus revenge, honor versus rage. I touched his arm. He's right. Not because he deserves mercy, but because you deserve to be better than him. Let the council decide. Let them see the evidence, hear his confession, make it official. For a long moment, Dante didn't move. Then, slowly, he lowered the gun slightly, not put away, but no longer aimed at Antonio's head. Marco, he spoke into his comm. Call the council. Emergency meeting. Tell them we have evidence of patriarch murder and Antonio Marchesi's confession. Send them the recording I just made. Already done, boss. Marco's voice came back. Council is convening in 2 hours. And boss, we've got backup surrounding the property. Antonio's guards are outnumbered 3-1. He's not going anywhere. Around us, Antonio's guards were lowering their weapons, stepping back, because they'd heard the confession too. Because in our world, there were lines you didn't cross, and Antonio had crossed all of them. It's over, Uncle, Dante said quietly. You lost. Not through violence or warfare, but through your own arrogance. You couldn't help yourself, you had to justify what you did, had to explain why you were right. He gestured to 2 of Marco's men who'd appeared from the shadows. Take him. Keep him secured until the council convenes. As they dragged Antonio away, the powerful patriarch reduced to a prisoner in seconds, he screamed, You'll regret this. The old guard is loyal to me. They'll never accept you as patriarch. Then they can face the same judgment you will, Dante called back. He turned to me, and suddenly all the cold control was gone, replaced by concern. Are you hurt? Did anyone? I'm fine. I was shaking, adrenaline and shock making my hands tremble. But my mother, he killed her. He actually murdered her. I'm sorry you had to find out like this. I should have told you earlier, should have prepared you. No, I cut him off. You did what you had to do. You got evidence, got a confession, got justice. Tears were running down my face. She was dying anyway from the cancer, but he couldn't even let her die in peace. He had to. My voice broke completely. Dante pulled me into his arms, holding me while I cried into his chest. Around us, his men secured the property, but all I could focus on was the warmth of him, the steady beat of his heart, the way his hand smoothed down my back in a gesture of comfort. We got him, he murmured. Your mother can rest now. Luca can rest. It's over, Riley. It's finally over. But even as he said it, I felt the weight of what came next. The council meeting, my testimony, the video of Antonio's confession, the evidence in the waterproof box Dante still carried in his jacket. And after all of that, after justice was served and Antonio faced execution, what happened to me? To us? To the strange connection that had formed between a waitress and a mob boss brought together by murder and tattoos and a dead woman's insurance policy? I pulled back enough to look at him. What happens now? Now we go to the council, present everything. Watch Antonio face judgment for what he did. His hand cupped my face gently. And then you get to decide. Decide what? Whether you want to stay in this world or leave it. You're Marchesi by blood and marriage, Riley. You have every right to claim that heritage, to be part of the family, but you also have the right to walk away, to go back to your life and pretend none of this ever happened. Could I do that? Just walk away? With my protection, yes. I'd make sure you were safe, that no one bothered you, that you could live whatever life you wanted. His thumb traced my cheekbone. But I hope you'll consider staying. At least long enough to see if this world, if I could, be part of your future. My heart hammered. Dante, I know it's insane. I know we barely know each other. But Riley, you're brave and smart, and you stood up to Antonio without flinching. You're Victoria's daughter, you have her strength, her integrity. And I... He stopped, jaw tightening. I'd like the chance to know you without murder investigations and evidence retrieval. To see if what I'm feeling is real, or just the intensity of the situation. What are you feeling? Like I want to protect you, not because I owe your mother a debt, but because when I'm with you, I remember there's more to life than revenge and power. His forehead pressed against mine. Like maybe Luca was right, that love is worth more than any empire, any family legacy. I should have pulled away, should have said this was too fast, too dangerous, too complicated. But instead, I kissed him. It was brief, desperate, full of adrenaline and fear and hope. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Ask me again after the council meeting, I whispered. After this is really over. After I know who I am in your world. I will. He took my hand. Come on, we have a patriarch to bring down. The council meeting took place in a private room at an upscale restaurant in the Back Bay. 5 families, 5 representatives, sitting around a table that had probably hosted dinners and negotiations and judgments for generations. I sat beside Dante, wearing a dress Marco had somehow procured that made me look respectable despite the circumstances. Across from us, Antonio sat between 2 guards, hands secured, face carefully blank. The other representatives, older men mostly. One woman from the De Luca family watched with varying expressions of interest and concern. Let's begin, said the eldest, Don Carmine from the Esposito family. Dante Marchesi has called this emergency council meeting claiming evidence of patriarch murder. This is serious accusation. It is, Dante agreed. He stood, pulled out the waterproof box we'd retrieved from the fountain. 18 years ago, my uncle Luca Marchesi was murdered in his home. The family was told the Irish were responsible, that it was retaliation for territorial disputes. We've been at war with O'Sullivan organization ever since. He opened the box, pulled out folders, photographs, USB drives. This is evidence Chen Marchesi collected the night of Luca's murder. Documents showing financial transfers from Antonio Marchesi to known hitmen. Recordings of conversations where Antonio discusses solving the Luca problem. Photographs of Antonio meeting with the actual killers days before the murder. He spread them across the table. The council members leaned forward, examining documents with increasing alarm. Victoria witnessed the murder, Dante continued. She saw Antonio give the order, saw him kill his own brother to seize control of the family. She took this evidence and ran, spent 18 years hiding with her daughter, waiting for the right moment to expose him. And where is Victoria now? Don Carmine asked. Why isn't she here to testify? Because Antonio had her murdered 6 months ago. Dante played the hospital security footage. His men poisoned her while she was dying of cancer because she'd finally contacted me, because she was ready to come forward. The room erupted in angry Italian. I caught fragments, disgrace, betrayal, oathbreaker, order. Don Carmine slammed his hand on the table. Antonio, what do you say to these accusations? Lies. Antonio's voice was steady. Victoria Chen was a traitor who abandoned our family. This evidence could have been fabricated years ago. The video is circumstantial at best. Dante is trying to seize power by discrediting me. Is that why you confessed earlier tonight? Dante played the recording from the fountain garden. Antonio's voice filled the room. I saved this family. Luca would have ruined us with his weakness. The entire confession. Every incriminating word. Silence. That, Antonio's composure finally cracked completely. That was taken under duress. I was threatened. You can't what? Dante's voice was cold. Can't hold you accountable for your own words? You confessed, Antonio. To murder, to conspiracy, to 18 years of lies. You broke every oath, violated every rule that keeps our world functioning. Don Carmine looked at me. And who are you, young lady? I stood, legs shaking but voice steady. Riley Hayes, Victoria Chen's daughter, Luca Marchesi's stepdaughter. I pulled up my sleeve, showed the phoenix tattoo. My mother gave me this mark to prove my bloodline, to protect me if something happened to her. She left me a letter explaining everything: how Antonio killed Luca, how she ran, how she waited 18 years for Dante to be strong enough to face him. I met Antonio's eyes across the table. You murdered my mother because she tried to do the right thing. Because she believed in honor and justice, even in your world. And now I'm here to make sure her death wasn't meaningless. The council deliberated for 30 minutes. I wasn't allowed in the room, family business, they said, despite my testimony. Dante waited with me in the hallway, hands in pockets, jaw tight. How long does it usually take? I asked. Depends on the evidence. But Riley, he turned to face me. No matter what they decide, you did well in there. You honored your mother. Will they really execute him? If they vote guilty on patriarch murder? Yes. It's the only acceptable punishment for breaking the most sacred rule. His expression was unreadable. He's my father's brother. My uncle. But he killed Luca, killed your mother, would have killed you. Justice has to matter more than blood. Before I could respond, the doors opened. Don Carmine gestured us inside. The 5 representatives sat with identical grave expressions. Antonio Marchesi, Don Carmine pronounced, "This council finds you guilty of murdering patriarch Luca Marchesi, of conspiracy to deceive the family council, of ordering the death of Victoria Chen Marchesi, and of attempting to murder Riley Hayes. These crimes carry only one sentence." He stood. The others stood with him. "By the unanimous vote of this council, you are stripped of all rank, all property, all family connection. You are no longer Marchesi, and at dawn tomorrow you will face execution for your crimes." Antonio lunged across the table, screaming, reaching for Dante with pure hatred in his eyes. Guards restrained him, dragged him from the room, still shouting threats and curses. Don Carmine turned to Dante. "The council recognizes you, Dante Marchesi, as rightful patriarch of your family. May you lead with more honor than your uncle did." The other representatives nodded agreement. Just like that, it was over. 18 years of running, of hiding, of fear ended by evidence in a waterproof box and a confession recorded in a fountain garden. My mother could finally rest. They executed Antonio at dawn in a private location I wasn't invited to witness. Dante left at 5 a.m., returned 3 hours later looking exhausted and somehow older. "It's done," was all he said. I didn't ask for details. Didn't want to know how they'd done it, who'd pulled the trigger, whether Antonio had begged or stayed silent at the end. Justice wasn't always neat. Sometimes it was just necessary. We spent the day handling aftermath legal documents, transferring property, meetings with family members who pledged loyalty to the new patriarch, arrangements for Antonio's burial, small, private, with no honors despite his years of service. By evening, I was exhausted in ways I'd never experienced. Not physical tiredness, but emotional depletion from processing trauma and violence and world-ending changes. Dante found me on the safe house balcony, watching sunset over the Charles River. "How are you holding up?" he asked, leaning against the railing beside me. "I don't know. Ask me in a week." I pulled my jacket tighter against November cold. "Is it always like this? The violence, the council meetings, the executions?" "No. What happened this week is extraordinary even by our standards. Most days are boring logistics, business deals, mediating disputes." He smiled slightly. "Very few fountain heists and dramatic confessions. So, this isn't normal mob life? This is mob life at its most intense, but normal." He paused. "Normal is actually pretty mundane. Paperwork, negotiations, family dinners that don't end in arrests." I turned to look at him. "You asked me earlier if I'd stay. If I'd give this world, give us a chance. I did. I'm still a waitress with debt and an apartment I can't afford. You're a patriarch now, with responsibilities to hundreds of people. How would that even work? However we want it to work." He moved closer. "Riley, I'm not asking you to become someone you're not. I'm not asking you to give up who you are or what you want from life. I'm just asking if you'll let me be part of it. What do you want from me?" Honestly, his hand found mine. Dinner, conversation, walks along the river where we're not running from anyone, the chance to know you without crisis forcing us together. He paused. "And maybe, eventually, something more, but only if you want that too." I thought about my mother, about Victoria Chen, who'd loved Luca Marchesi enough to witness his murder, to run for 18 years, to die protecting secrets that would save her daughter. She'd chosen love in a dangerous world and paid the price for it, but she'd also lived, really lived, before the running started. She'd known passion and purpose and what it meant to matter to someone beyond bloodline and obligation. "I want dinner," I said finally. "Real dinner, in a restaurant where nobody's getting murdered or confessing to crimes. I want normal. I can do normal." He was smiling now, genuine warmth replacing the cold control. "There's this Italian place in the North End, family-owned, best carbonara you've ever had. We could go tomorrow night." "Like a date?" "Exactly like a date. I'll pick you up. We'll eat too much pasta. We'll talk about things that have nothing to do with murder or evidence or tattoos that reveal secret identities. Can we also talk about what happens next? To me? To the safe house? To the fact that I technically still work at a diner? We can talk about all of it." His thumb traced patterns on the back of my hand. "But Riley, I need you to know whatever you decide, whoever you want to be, you have resources now. Your mother's inheritance, Luca's assets that should have gone to her legally, as their daughter, you're entitled to significant money." My breath caught. "How much money?" "Enough that you'd never have to worry about rent again. Enough that you could buy the diner if you wanted, or go to college, or travel, or do literally Anything you've ever dreamed of." He squeezed my hand. "Your mother made sure you'd be taken care of. She might not have been able to give you normal, but she gave you security." I was crying again, but this time it wasn't grief. It was relief and gratitude, and the overwhelming realization that my mother had loved me enough to plan for a future she'd never see. "Thank you," I whispered, "for finding me, for believing the letter, for getting justice for her. Thank you for being brave enough to claim your heritage." He pulled me into his arms. "For standing up to Antonio, for giving the council testimony they couldn't ignore. You did that, Riley. You ended 18 years of lies." We stood like that while the sun finished setting, turning the river into liquid gold. Somewhere in Boston, life continued. The diner where I'd worked served coffee to night shift workers. The apartment I couldn't afford sat empty, waiting for me to decide if I'd ever return. The grave where my mother was, buried, held secrets that were finally at rest. And in my arms, a dangerous man who'd become patriarch of a crime family held me like I was something precious. "So tomorrow," I said against his chest. "Dinner, normal, just us." "Just us," he agreed. "No guards, no security, no business. Just Dante and Riley figuring out if what we feel is real. And if it is real, then we figure out what comes next." He pulled back to look at me, and the vulnerability in his eyes took my breath away. "I know my world isn't easy. I know you didn't ask for any of this. But Riley, if you'll give me a chance, I promise I'll spend every day trying to deserve the trust your mother placed in me when she sent you to find me." I kissed him, then slower this time, deliberate, full of promise instead of desperation. When we broke apart, we were both smiling. "Tomorrow," I said, "best carbonara in the North End. And Dante?" "Yes?" This tattoo, I touched the phoenix on my forearm. My mother gave. To me, this thinking I'd need protection. Insurance. But I think she also knew I'd need family. Real family, chosen not by blood but by love and loyalty and willingness to fight for each other. His hand covered mine over the tattoo. "You have that now. You have me. You have Marco and Vincent and Sal who'd die to protect you. You have the Marchesi name and everything that comes with it." He smiled. "And you have one ex-mob boss trying very hard to figure out how to date someone normal." "Ex-mob boss? I'm delegating," he said seriously. "Luca taught me that before he died that being patriarch doesn't mean doing everything yourself. It means trusting the right people to help you lead. I'm going to do that. Build a team, distribute responsibility, actually have a life outside of family business. Because of me, because of you, because you make me want to be more than just the patriarch. Because when I'm with you, I remember there's a world outside of violence and power." He kissed my forehead gently. "Because my uncle loved your mother enough to change for her, and I think I'm falling in love with you the same way." My heart stuttered. "Dante. Too much too soon." "No," I laughed, surprising myself. "Just unexpected. But good, really good." We went inside as full dark fell, and I realized something fundamental had shifted. I wasn't Riley Hayes, struggling waitress anymore, but I also wasn't Victoria Chen's frightened daughter, running from shadows. I was something new, something I'd get to define myself. Riley Marchesi, if I wanted the name, or Riley Hayes, protected and supported but independent, or some combination of both, a woman who could move between worlds, who could serve coffee in the morning and attend council meetings in the evening. The tattoo on my arm had been my mother's insurance policy, but it had become something else. Permission to choose, to claim power, to build whatever life I wanted with the protection and resources of a family that would die to keep me safe. Tomorrow, I'd have dinner with Dante. We'd eat too much pasta and talk about normal things and figure out if what we felt was real or just intensity. But tonight, I stood in a safe house that no longer felt like a prison, wearing a tattoo that no longer felt like a burden, and felt something I hadn't experienced in 6 months since my mother died. Hope for the future, for justice served, for love that might actually survive in a dangerous world, for the chance to be someone my mother would be proud of, strong and brave and willing to fight for family, just like she'd done for 18 years. The phoenix rising from flames. That was the symbol, but it was also a promise. No matter how many times you burned, you could always rise again. I had risen, and I wasn't planning on falling back down. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.